What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and today we have another very exciting deck list to go over with you. We're going to be looking at Amber Sapphire, the most current version of it, Amber Sapphire Aggro to be more specific. The deck is in an absolutely crazy spot. It's got a pretty crazy play line that can result in you being near half as much lore as you need within the first 3 turns of the game, which is pretty nuts, and it's honestly fairly reliable to get play lines like that with this deck. So I think the deck is super aggressive. I think it's really good into Steel because it has a lot of high willpower characters, as well as being really good into Ruby Sapphire because it is a fast aggro deck and can sometimes put on the pressure before they can really do anything about it. And those are the primary matchups you're going to be seeing in the meta right now. Of course, Ruby Amethyst is out there. Matchup may be a little bit tougher for you, but primarily you're going to be playing into either Steel or Ruby Sapphire in a lot of bigger tournaments. That being said, as always, big shout out to the Patreons for making giveaways on the channel possible and keeping the new content coming. You guys are the real MVPs, and we couldn't do any of this without you, so I appreciate you so much. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into talking about Amber Sapphire Hyper Aggro. So first up in the 1-drop slot, we are on 4 Lilo Making a Wish. Still a fantastic card. It's a little less favorable. It's not necessarily what you're looking to see in those Steel matchups, unless you're able to get them to exhaust some of their Steel removal into other characters on your board. But if you can get a quest out of it, getting it removed isn't the worst thing. If it gets removed before a quest, it can be a little sadder. But a lot of the removal that is removing it is going to cost more than Lilo costs, so it's kind of a favorable trade unless they sing it. A little interesting, but if she can get going questing, particularly in that Ruby Sapphire matchup, she can be really good. 1 cost uninkable, 1/1 stat line questing for 2. Next up in the 1 cost slot, we are on 4 Nala. Little less aggressive with the questing power. She is a 1 cost inkable character, 0/4 stat line, so she's not going to be dealing any damage, but she is questing for 1, and 4 is a fantastic amount of willpower. Definitely makes it difficult to deal with for those Steel decks and increases the probability that Nala is going to be able to get in multiple quests. Then the last 1-drop character in the deck, we are on 4 Daisy Duck Donald's Date, a 1 cost uninkable character, 1/4 stat line this time, so she is going to be able to deal some damage, and she is questing for 2, so a higher quest than Nala. However, she does have a bit of a drawback ability, can be good in certain matchups, but in matchups where your opponents are playing character heavy decks, not so great. I've seen Ruby Sapphire lists where they're running 30 characters and 30 non-characters though. Daisy Duck is gonna feel real good into that matchup. Drawback ability, whenever this character quests, each opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a character card, they may put it into their hand. If it is not a character card, however, it's going to go to the bottom of their library. Great way to get rid of those Be Prepared Fishbone Quills off the top deck. However, not so great, like I mentioned, into those character-based decks. Next up, jumping over to the 2-cost slot, we're on 3 Duke Weaselton Small Time Crook, a 2-cost inkable character, 1/2 stat line questing for 2, and he has ward, so he is going to come down and stay down. Your opponent's not going to be able to deal with him with direct removal. If they maybe have something like Grab Your Swords, he is going to get removed by that, but anything direct removal wise is not going to be dealing with the Duke, so he is potentially going to get at least 1 quest in. Can be a good way to close out games, just top deck a character with ward. Next up, in a card I got when it was about 5 cents, has gone up a little bit for the foils, since Amber Sapphire has seen some play. Not a ton of top placements, but I think this deck list is where you want to be with it if you want to be able to pull out a top placement in a big or small tournament. But also in the 2-cost slot, we are on 4 Anna Braving the Storm, a 2-cost inkable, 1/4 stat line questing for 1. However, if you have another hero character in play, she is going to be questing for an additional 1, so you're going to be questing in for 2 with her, just like Daisy with no drawback ability. She does cost 2 where Daisy costs 1, but she is also inkable. I think Anna is a lot better than some people give her credit for. And also in the 2-cost slot, we are on 3 Lilo Escape Artist, or Zombie Lilo as some people call her, a 2-cost inkable, 1/2 stat line questing for 2. At the start of your turn, if this card is in your discard, you may play her and she enters play exerted, which is wonderful. Being able to bring her back over and over again can be annoying for your opponent. They're going to have to keep removing her either with direct removal or by challenging her over and over again, keeping one of their characters from questing. Next up in the 2-cost slot, we're on 4 Simba Protective Cub, a 2-cost inkable, 2/3 stat line questing for 1, but he does have bodyguard, so he's going to be a great way to protect those Lilos if that's where you're going in the early game. Then jumping over to the 3-cost slot and another bodyguard, we are on 2 Baloo von Brunwald the 13th, a 3-cost uninkable 0/3 stat line, questing for 1 with bodyguard. He does, however, have when this character is banished, you're going to gain 2 lore, so it's a great way not only to protect your field, but to put some additional lore pressure on when he's removed. Your opponent's going to have to deal with him pretty much right away in terms of removing him to be able to get at your other characters, and short of playing something like a Let It Go, you are potentially going to be gaining those 2 lore when that happens. Next up, a card I've been on a few different counts of. I tried playing 2, I tried playing 3. Ultimately, I always ended up back on 4. This is a card I first popularized with my Queen build, where you were able to take advantage of World's Greatest Criminal Mind, using Queen or Wendy Darling on your opponent's characters, and then using World's Greatest Criminal Mind to remove them. I have moved away from playing World's Greatest Criminal Mind, but we are still on 4 Wendy Darling, because she is a 3-cost inkable 3/1 stat line, questing for 2 with ward and support. So not only when she quests is she able to pump something else up to potentially be able to take a favorable trade. Really funny with things like Daisy Duck or that Anna that have 4 defense, where you're able to get them up to a 4/4, bash something off the board, and then maybe throw down something like a Rapunzel to be able to heal them back up and draw you some cards. That's always fantastic. The other thing that's really funny about her is they are going to have to challenge into her unless they have like Tinkerbell or Grab Your Sword due to the ward, and she is going to deal 3 damage to whatever character challenges into her. Next up, another bodyguard. We are on 4 Donald Duck Musketeer Soldier, a 3-cost inkable 2/3 stat line, same as Simba, and he is bodyguard also same as Simba, but when you play this character, he is going to give another character +1 lore this turn. So that was part of that playline I was talking about, where you can go turn 1 1-cost guy who quests for 2, turn 2 2 1-cost guys who quest for 2, turn 3 you go ahead and throw down Donald Duck to protect all of those guys, and you're questing in for 7 that turn plus the 2 on the previous turn, so you'll already be at 9 on turn 3, and that's not the only way to accomplish that with this deck, which is kind of crazy. There's also a potential play line where you can go turn 1 1-cost guy, turn 2 2 1-cost guys, turn 3 Alice, and then turn 4 Sven, and it's going to be near impossible for your opponent to win, especially if you win first. Next up in the 3-cost slot, we are on 2 Julieta Madrigal, excellent cook, a 3-cost inkable 1/4 stat line, questing for 1, again playing into those 4 willpower characters, and when you play this character, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If you remove damage this way, you may draw a card, so it's kind of a worse version of Rapunzel, but it's good to have some additional card draw in this deck, because it is honestly the main thing that this deck struggles with, which is kind of funny into that Steel Song matchup where you're already favored, because if they Whole New World, it's so good for you. Last up in the 3-cost slot, we are on 4 Alice Savvy Sailor, a 3-cost uninkable 1/4 stat line. Yet again, you see a trend here, 1/4 1/4 1/4. She is questing for 2. She does have wards, so that's going to keep her away from those brawls and all of that direct removal, such as Along Came Zeus, or sometimes Strength of a Raging Fire if they have enough characters out. And whenever this character quests, chosen character of yours gets +1 lore and gains ward until the start of your next turn, so it's always good to get that +1 lore, be able to get some additional questing power. However, that can still be pretty good if you don't have another character out to take advantage of, because you still want to give another character ward. So say you play something, the following turn you quest in with her, you give that other character ward. Now you have a ready character with ward, which is going to be dang near impossible for your opponent to take out, and if you are already putting the pressure on lore wise, that's just going to be a great way to continue to put that pressure on. But Alice Savvy Sailor, really good into something like Sven. You play Alice turn 3, the following turn you quest for 2, hopefully be able to give something else that additional lore and ward during your turn, quest in with that card. Then you play Sven to ready Alice, and the following turn you're able to use Alice to give Sven +1 lore, and yeah, it's really good. Next up, jumping over to the 4-cost slot, we are on 4 Rapunzel Gifted with a Healing, a 4-cost inkable 1/5 stat line, questing for 2. You know her, you love her. When she comes into play, you're going to be able to heal one of your characters for 3 and draw up to as many cards as you healed. So if you healed for 2, you draw 2. If you healed for 3, you can draw 3 cards while healing something and developing a character with a 1/5 stat line that quests for 2. Absolutely gross, particularly, like I mentioned, into the steel meta, where they're not only likely to leave damage on your characters, but they're going to struggle to deal with a 5 willpower character. I know these cards are expensive, and the first thing people always ask me is, what can I sub in for the Rapunzels? You can sub in a couple more Julietas, but they really aren't doing the same thing as Rapunzel, and the biggest thing that this deck struggles with is card draw. So if you're going to try to play this deck, particularly at a highly competitive level, I really recommend having the Rapunzels. Next up in the 4-cost slot, like I mentioned, we are on 3 Sven Reindeer Steed, a 4-cost inkable 3/3 stat line, questing for 2. When you play this character, you may ready chosen character. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. They can still sing songs. We're not really doing that with this deck, but keep that in mind with can't quest for the rest of the turn triggers. characters, you are potentially writing a character that can sing songs. So something like Ariel or something like that is very funny with something like Sven. Mostly here for Alice in this deck. Next up in the 4-cost slot, we are on 2 Scrooge McDuck, Aficionado of Antiques, a 4-cost uninkable 5/5 stat line. Worth it for the uninkable with a 5/5 stat line. He is vanilla, so no abilities, but he is questing for 2. 5/5 quest in their face for 2 is always great. There's not a lot of things that are going to remove this other than maybe Zeus, so Scrooge McDuck, super good. Last 4-cost card in the deck is going to be 4 McDuck Manor, a 4-cost inkable. Love being able to play Scrooge McDuck and McDuck Manor with this deck, as well as Daisy Duck and Donald Duck, which is neat. But McDuck Manor is going to be a 4-cost inkable, 1 to move in, not that you're ever going to do that because it has no abilities, 9 willpower, which is crazy, and it is gaining you 2 passive lore each turn that it remains on the field at the beginning of your turn. Next up, some recent additions I think are quite good. That is going to be Baymax Armored Companion, a 5-cost inkable, 2/6 stat line, questing for 2, and when you play this character and whenever he quests, you're going to be able to remove up to 2 damage from any chosen character, up to 2 damage from another chosen characters of yours, and then you are going to gain 1 lore for each damage removed this way. So if you play him and you remove 2 damage from something, you're going to gain 2 lore right away. Another great option for closing out games. Also, that, like I mentioned, with many of these cards, 6 willpower is going to make him very difficult for Steel to deal with in real time. Another card that's going to make all your characters difficult to deal with is going to be Kita, Protector of Atlantis, a 5-cost inkable 3/5 stat line, questing for 2, shifting for 3, not playing a shift target for this in this deck. That's not very relevant to us. When you play this character, all other characters get -3 strength until the start of your next turn. Keep in mind that does also impact your characters, so if you want to take some challenges before you give those characters minus strength, definitely make sure you're doing that and then throw the Kita down. However, if you're not looking to do that, you're just looking to quest in their face, throw that Kita down, quest in their face, and you have Kita ready to be an additional quester in the following turn. Super good way, again, to close out those games. I keep mentioning closing out those games because this deck can be closing out games on turn 5 or 6 pretty consistently if you're not seeing too much removal from your opponent. And again, with those ward characters, it's going to be difficult for your opponent to take advantage of their removal too favorably. So the deck is really a lot of fun. It's super interesting to play. It plays differently than a lot of other decks. You aren't drawing a ton of cards, so you definitely need to manage your resources well. Make sure you're inking correctly turn over turn. You're not necessarily looking to ink beyond 5 in a lot of cases because, again, you're not drawing a ton of cards. You're not looking to play multiple cards in the later turns per turn. You're just looking to play into that curve and win by, like I mentioned, turn 5 or 6 pretty consistently. What do you guys think of this deck list? Do you think it is the optimal place to be for Amber Sapphire? Do you think there are better cards that you could potentially be playing in the meta right now? Do you think there are cards I should be adding to this deck list or removing? I always love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you played Amber Sapphire? Was your build similar or different? Let me know what you're thinking. And we do have a giveaway winner, so we'll go ahead and throw that person's name on screen. Congratulations to you for winning the giveaway. We will have your Maui and your Lyle Tiberius Rourke out very soon. Definitely drop a comment on this video so we can get in touch with you to get your shipping information. If we don't hear back from you within the next week or so, we'll do another drawing for the raffle winner. But thank you guys as always for sticking around to the end. Remember to like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Once we hit 3,000 subscribers, we're going to be looking at doing another giveaway. And remember, when you see those toys, video games, and decks that have a little zombie Lilo in them off in the distance, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.